Real effect, says NYU marketing professor Scott Galloway.
There are certain actions and behavior that stick with an individual or a company regardless of the veracity of those accusations.
Yelp says it will verify the new racism alerts by checking for news stories that support users' complaints. It's not clear how Yelp will determine whether a news story is credible. And even then, Arante Bennett, a business professor at Villanova University, says there will still be a lot of blind spots.
Places like small towns where these kinds of incidents might not make the news or get any coverage, so the Yelp team can't verify that kind of misbehavior.
Yelp says there's been an increase in posts calling out racist behavior. Arante Bennett says Yelp's racism label will have the power to change consumer behavior, but not necessarily for the better in every case.
I can easily imagine a scenario where a white supremacist sees this badge or actively seeks out this badge in order to spend money in places where they've had an evidenced history of being discriminatory.
And that, too, is something that could go wrong with Yelp's new racism label. I'm Erica Barris for Marketplace.
Coming up.
So, yeah, my bachelorette shop girl days are over.
Settling down, if you will, as a small business owner in this economy. But first, oh, sure, why not? Let's do the numbers. Jake Sherman was right, man. I'll tell you what. Dow Industrials advanced 161 points today, 0.5%, 28,586. The NASDAQ picked up 158 points, 1.3%, 11,579. S&P 500 up 30 points, 0.8%, ended at 34,77. Good week in equities, because everything's cool, right? For the week, the Dow surged 3.2%, the NASDAQ climbed 4.5%, S&P 500 ascended 3.8%. Erica was cluing us in there a minute ago to some changes afoot at Yelp. Company shares down 1.6% today. The United Nations World Food Program is seeing a sharp increase in the number of people who are on the brink of starvation. The winner of the 2020 Nobel Peace Prize announced this morning says that number could double this year because pandemic to 265 million people. You're listening to Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Fidelity Wealth Management, where advisors work with their clients to develop flexible investment strategies that evolve as their needs change. Fidelity.com/wealth. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. And by Avalara. Since 2004, Avalara has been helping businesses streamline and automate their tax compliance processes with cloud-based rate, rule, and filing technology. Avalara, tax compliance done right. AVALARA.com. And by Mimecast, offering cloud email security. Mimecast is dedicated to protecting companies from spam, phishing, and other email-based cyber threats. Serving more than 20,000 Microsoft 365 customers. Mimecast.com. Relentless protection, resilient world.
I'm Razia Iqbal. You hear BBC NewsHour throughout the week, but news breaks on the weekends too.
This is an historic victory and what is a very important day.
This could change world history.
Everybody's going to pay a price. He will, everybody will.
And I am just so happy to be home and to put my feet on this land again.
Again, another huge development.
Stay connected. Count on NewsHour from the BBC.
Saturday and Sunday afternoons at 4 on 93.9 FM and AM 820 WNYC.
WNYC is supported by HSS, the #1 hospital in orthopedics in the nation for 11 years in a row, according to U.S. News & World Report. Now offering Saturday hours, in-person appointments, and virtual visits. More at hss.edu.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, a new study shows that laughter is a better indicator in determining friendships than even speech. We'll hear that story at 7 on All Things Considered. Stay tuned.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Ryssdal. The name International Business Machines, now just IBM, has been around for a little bit more than 100 years, which means the company is old enough to have changed with the times a few times. But it's never really strayed too far from its core business of computer hardware and software. Now, though, there are going to be fewer M's in IBM. The company is spinning off its infrastructure unit to focus on the cloud. Marketplace's Kristen Schwab has that one.
IBM started out selling tabulating machines, but knew early on it had to evolve. There's even a company song from the 1930s that talks about new fields we're sure to conquer. Ever onward. So when punch cards became outdated, the company got into mainframe computers. And when personal computers came along, IBM expanded to software and other services. Michael Cusimano is a professor at MIT.
They've been systematically shedding businesses that become commodities.
And in tech, he says, commodities don't come with high profit margins. So IBM started dipping its toe into the cloud business. Just the toe. Jim Cortada wrote a book about the company.
IBM's history is that it does not like to be the first one to do something, because the first person to do something normally doesn't get it quite right.
Now IBM says it's diverting 90,000 employees into this new line of business.
This will force IBM to live and die based on artificial intelligence and cloud computing.
It's a good call for IBM, says Moshe Katri at Wedbush Securities. But he also says it may not be enough.
They'll have to either make another large acquisition, or they're going to have to go on with other spin-offs of the business.
Because giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google already dominate that market. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
Hey, what are you doing Monday morning real early? Do me a favor, would you tune into the Marketplace Morning Report? David Broncat Show and the crew on the early shift getting you ready for your economic day. A lot of people are not doing real great right now. Health hazards, financial insecurity, social isolation, all of them leading to all kinds of mental stress. The CDC, the Centers for
essentially fine, but he didn't feel fine.
We noticed you missed a few days of work in a row, and here are some resources in case you need anything.
He called his company's employee assistance program and was quickly referred to a therapist for several free sessions.
And boy, that was sure a lifeline that they threw me.
About 60% of full-time workers are eligible for this type of benefit, according to federal data, but very few of them actually use it. And the pandemic is presenting new obstacles for many workers, like Julie. She doesn't want to use her real name for the same reason she doesn't want to use her employee assistance plan.
I just don't want to open the opportunity to be seen as not able to deal with things.
She works for a national nonprofit that's seen big job cuts, so she's feeling extra vulnerable. Lisa Freidenlund with the Society for Human Resource Management says, like any therapy, what's talked about in a session is confidential. She encourages managers to normalize issues of mental health.
There's been such a stigma, but being able to talk about it and to acknowledge it is so important.
She says that is increasingly happening because so much of the trauma of the pandemic has been shared. I'm Megan McCarty-Carino for Marketplace.
We met Maris Johansson back in June. She's a first-time entrepreneur in Denver who'd opened a children's clothing and toy store in mid-May, just after Colorado lifted its restrictions on the pandemic. Mariel Segura had gotten in touch and asked Maris to record on her phone a day in her life. And at the end of that recording, Maris had said she wasn't sure how long her business would be able to make it. But it is. She's surviving, and she'd made it to September, a big month, apparently, in kids' toys and clothing. So she recorded a second installment of her audio diary for us. Here's Mariel.
On the Tuesday morning after Labor Day, Maris Johansson and her two kids are sitting in an armchair reading a book when her 4-year-old son, Logan, sees something out the window.
Snowflakes.
Oh, yeah. Starting to come down, huh?
I bet how fun it is to play in that snow.
Snow in Denver in early September. Unexpected, But Maris gets in the car and heads to her store, Broomtail, which sells children's clothes and toys, like dinosaur hand puppets. It's 8:48, just pulled up to the back of the shop. And we'll see. I really don't know what to expect for today. You know, on one hand, I could see the weather driving people in because, you know, you go to your kids' drawers and realize that things from last winter don't fit. Or the snow could keep people at home. It's hard to predict. She can't help but try, though. Broomtail has been open for almost 4 months, and as of Labor Day, has yet to turn a profit. Not surprising for a new business, especially now. But in August, she was just $1,000 short, and she thinks this could be her month. Typically, you know, I've heard that September is the biggest month for retailers and children's apparel, even bigger than some of the holiday months. But this is not a typical year. So I'm going to go in here. Inside the store, she begins her daily deep clean. Okay, it's that time. It was a weird, lonely summer. Her sales fell in July, and the restaurant next door shut down. You know, the owner would stop by and bring me coffee, or we'd chit-chat about things going on in the neighborhood and business. And even if we weren't talking, you know, I could still hear them next door and hear people coming in and out. So you just felt like you weren't totally in it alone. Until she was. On Saturday, September 12th, Maris records herself as she hops out of her car and heads into a UPS store with a package for a customer. Hi, how are you? Just dropping this off. She's been making a lot more of these trips lately. Her online sales are growing. Okay, thanks. Have a good day. This summer, she started to offer free shipping for orders over $75. She kind of felt like she had to. But it's expensive. So she's also started making her own local deliveries. You know, if it's in Denver, I always check the route. If it's on my way home or into the shop, then I will drop it off myself. A couple weeks later, Maris records an update. Morning. It is Thursday, September 24th. It's just a little after 11. I've been open for an hour, and it's been pretty brisk business this morning, I would say. She's made 5 sales already, online and in-store, which is wild because the past 2 days it's been dead. So, I don't know. I think I need to stop trying to anticipate consumer behavior and just keep rolling and keep busy. She has some big news. She just hired her first employee. Jocelyn is a commercial photographer who recently took photos of the shop. Now she'll work as a sales associate at the store for $18 an hour, 2 Saturdays a month, which means Maris can finally take a weekend off. A week later, on September 29th, Maris is getting the store ready for Jocelyn. She brought in some hand cream and energy bars, so her new employee will feel at home. And it's funny, I feel like it's like when you've been dating someone and, you know, you're about to move in together and you're kind of going through your house with a little bit of a different eye. And it's like, oh, in my little fridge here, I have like mustard and, you know, ham cold cuts. Like, that is really weird. So, yeah, my bachelorette shop girl days are over. A few days later, Maris looks at her numbers and sees that, remarkably, as a new business in the midst of a pandemic, she has actually made a profit for the month of $1,200. She hasn't quite figured out why her customers shop when they do, but she'll take it. I'm Marielle Segarra for Marketplace.
This final note on the way out today comes to us from the academic journal Economic Letters, a study titled, and I kid you not, Later Bedtimes Predict President Trump's Performance. The methodology went like this. They looked at the president's tweeting times, literally the times of day he has been sending out tweets, as a proxy for how much sleep he's getting and what effect that had on him the next day. So here's how it breaks down, and I'm just going to quote the paper's abstract here. The president wakes around 6 a.m., a routine which has not changed since early 2017. In contrast, they write, the frequency of Twitter activity between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. increased 317% from less than 1 day a week in 2017 to 3 days a week in 2020. So that's the data. What's the result? Well, the researchers point out that the president's speeches and interview transcripts have already been analyzed by others for their emotional characteristics. So here's the cross-reference with late-night tweeting. On the day following a late night, they write, the president's inferred emotion is less likely to be happy and nearly 3 times more likely to be angry in interviews and speeches. And finally, the abstract concludes, the 2020 election odds of the president's chief opponent also increase after a late Twitter night, while the president's prospects are unchanged.
Marketplace is supported by Progressive Insurance with the Name Your Price tool offering a range of coverage and price options to choose from. Now that's Progressive. More at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. And by Elijah Craig Bourbon, distilled, aged, and bottled for warm spice and subtle smoke flavors. Elijah Craig Straight Bourbon Whiskey, Bardstown, Kentucky, 47% alcohol by volume. Please drink responsibly. And by Baird. As clients focus on the challenges stemming from COVID-19, Baird remains committed to their financial interests as they have for 100 years. More information at rwbaird.com.
Okay, we are on our way out, but here is your end of the week moment of economic context. A quick follow-up to the interview I did a couple of days ago with Eva Price. She's a producer on Broadway. You might remember did the Oklahoma Revival last year, has an Alanis Morissette show going, or had anyway, until things shut down. And I had asked her when we talked how she's getting ready for when theaters eventually reopen. And it turns out she's going to have a little bit more time to figure it out. The Broadway League said today it's going to stay dark until at least the end of May of next year, 2021. Okay, now we're really leaving. Our theme music was composed by B.J. Liederman. Marketplace's executive producer is Nancy Fargali. Nancy Cassett is the managing director of news. I'm Kai Rizdal. We will see you Monday, everybody. Have yourselves a good weekend, all right? This is APM.